God, this game is so much fun. Welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about High Tides, which is a game that a ton of people recommended to me. Which is a little surprising because the player count isn't all that high, with there only being around 600 players, give or take, at the current time of recording this video. But a ton of people recommended this to me, and I can 100% see why. The game is inspired by a bunch of games that I really like. The two most notable ones are, of course, Zeppelin Wars and a real Roblox classic, Galleons. That game is dead as a door now, but I used to love playing that game as a kid, which means that this entire video is extremely biased. Of course it's going to be. It's two games that I played as a kid that I absolutely loved, and they're basically smashed together, so I'm almost predisposed to enjoy it. That said, I'm gonna try my best to remain as objective as possible when I'm talking about this stuff, but just know that I'm biased from the start. Anyways, the gameplay loop for High Tides varies greatly depending on which game mode is chosen, because as it stands, there are a couple game modes available for you to pick from that you can vote on right at the start of the round. I'll just do a quick synopsis of all of the game modes so you have a pretty good idea of what you'll be playing. Bloody Buccaneers is literally just team deathmatch. Sometimes it feels a little out of place in the game, considering that a lot of the time it plays pretty much identical to the classic mode, aside from the fact that destroying the enemy boat doesn't actually destroy their boat and doesn't really mean anything. You can still do it, which just feels odd. But either way, the goal of the game is to kill more of the enemy team than they kill of yours, and whoever kills the most people wins. Freedom's Corsair is a little bit more interesting than Bloody Buccaneers, as it's a free-for-all. This game mode quickly turns into an absolute clusterfuck, as a lot of the maps for this are really small. They'll have you spawning directly on top of your enemies, often spawning you with the same spawn point, and really, it's just a chaotic mess, which, whether it's for you or not, well, it depends if you enjoy a chaotic mess. Most strategy goes out the window, and it's basically just people smashing into each other. Needless to say, your average lifespan in this game mode is a lot shorter than basically any of the other ones. The Pillaging Plunderers game mode is effectively King of the Hill. Once again, you and your enemies spawn on your respective ships on the other side of the map, and you're tasked with fighting over a hill in the middle, and of course whoever holds the hill for the longest wins the game. One of the most interesting game modes was probably the Flying Dutchman mode, which is basically one of the most surprisingly balanced games of infection I've ever seen. The zombie team spawns up on a Flying Dutchman above the pirate's ship, and they have to come down and attack the pirates in order to infect them, and obviously each person who's killed goes on to the zombie team. The thing that was shockingly well balanced about this game mode is that the gameplay itself, which I'll be talking about after I finish up with game modes, really lends itself well to this game mode, with it feeling like the zombies as well as the Buccaneers have almost equally as much of a chance. But it also really helps that the zombie team gets ranged abilities that do a very small amount of damage, but allow the zombies team to stop the other team from just camping in one spot the entire time. It's really easy for the Marauders to kill the zombies, but they have to be grouped up and paying attention to their resources, not wasting a bunch of stuff, and generally, I was just shocked at how well it worked. All four of the games that I played for this game mode were extremely close and came down to the wire with only a couple survivors, and that's an impressive feat. And then finally, we get to talk about Classic Mode, which is the general game mode that you'll probably be playing the most because most people vote for it, and also it's the most fun, so I don't really blame them. Classic Mode is what you would expect. You have crew members whose job it is to defend the boats, and then you have attackers whose job it is to invade the enemy boat and blow it up. They blow it up by planting charges that can only be defused by the crew members. So basically a copy-paste of the way it works in Zeppelin Wars. You can spawn boats in order to get to the enemy boat faster, along with being able to spawn a little spawn ship, which while active will allow other teammates to spawn on it, so that way they don't have to run across the whole map. Now, while I'm talking about all of these game modes and how enjoyable pretty much all of them are, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is actually voting for the game mode that you want to play. This uses a system that on Roblox I think is pretty flawed, and I wish every once in a while there was a switch up to it, because unfortunately the way this works is basically the hive mind. When you're on the voting platform, there's a whole bunch of maps, and basically everyone just flocks to one, and once the first 2 or 3 people pick one, a bunch of people just follow them, and then there's no way you'll ever outvote it. Oftentimes, this leads to 1 or 2 people being able to manipulate the game modes to be the same thing over and over and over and over again, or making it so specific game modes just don't get picked. Like I said, I only played 4 games of Flying Dutchman while I was playing, and I played for almost 3 hours, and pretty much all of the other games were either classic mode or the team deathmatch game mode. I didn't see a whole lot of the other game modes either. I'm pretty sure I only played 1 King of the Hill match, and it was a wash, so I barely played that. The whole thing is a bummer, and I'm not at all advocating for removing the ability to vote, especially not considering that there is a Game Pass related to voting, so if they took that out, all of those people would be scammed. But I do think that maybe once every 3 or 4 rounds, it would help variety a lot if it just picked a random game mode, so that maybe every once in a while, if there's something that people just don't pick, it'll actually get picked. It's a nitpick at the end of the day, but it just always bothers me when there's a whole bunch of things in the game, but you don't actually play them because people just never vote for them. Now, let's talk about the actual gameplay of High Tides itself, and this is very nearly perfection. High Tides gameplay perfectly treads the line between an extremely sweaty game and an extremely casual game, and I think that that's like perfect. This is the kind of thing that I think a lot of games should strive to do, and it's something that I mention a lot. And it's a really difficult line to straddle, which is why it's always impressive when I see it done right. Basically, combat always consists of a mix between ranged weapons and melee weapons. The ranged weapon gameplay varies wildly depending on what you have equipped. But the general rule of thumb is that you can fire a couple times and then you're gonna have to reload, and a lot of the weapons have a relatively lengthy reload, which means that just spamming guns the entire time isn't going to be wildly effective. Along with it, oftentimes taking a lot of bullets to kill your enemies, which means that while you're trying to do that, classes who may not have access to guns are able to push up on you and close the gap. Really what it comes down to is a lot of the guns in the game serve more of a purpose to damage an enemy to make it easier to kill them with a melee weapon when they get up close, rather than to just outright kill enemies. Not that there aren't weapons that do outright kill enemies. My favorite weapon in the game was the musket, because you can blast people in the head and they die instantly, which is hilarious in a game like this where oftentimes it takes a whole lot of shots to kill somebody. And I had an absolute field day with that musket, trust me. But generally speaking, every bullet that you hit with a weapon is another mistake that you can make once you inevitably get into melee combat. And I think this balance between melee combat and ranged combat is super interesting. But when you do get into melee combat, this is where that sort of line between skill and casual play kicks in. Because High Tides, in theory, is an incredibly skill-based game, but in practice isn't quite so. You basically have 3 different controls when you're in melee combat. You have an attack, a parry, and a dodge if you miss a parry that has a cooldown. If this was a widely 1v1 focused game, then I would wager to say that a lot of the interactions would take forever, with people just constantly parrying every single attack and dashing backwards and yada yada yada. But in practice, because of course this is Roblox and most of the people don't really know what they're doing nor care, a lot of the game borders on to just mad swing spam. And the thing is that unlike in a game like Deep Woken, where mad swing spam is just going to get you instantly killed, mad swing spam can actually work here. And that of course stems from the relatively lower time to kill when it comes to using melee weapons. Most melee weapons only need to get 3 or 4 hits in order to kill the enemy, and so if you're just mashing and you manage to squeeze in 2 or 3 hits, that's the end of it. And when you consider that there's a non-zero chance that people aren't always going to have full health because they're always getting shot by guns, you need even less hits in order to get a kill. But the thing is, the system itself, when it comes to parrying and dodging, still lends itself to having high skill-based gameplay. It's just that a lot of the time, if you're outnumbered, for example, it's almost not even going to matter, which is a good thing at the end of the day, because you don't want everyone who's not so good at the game to feel like they can't do anything. something that Deep Woken and a lot of the more high skill based games when it comes to PvP fail astronomically at, which is fine because those games aren't meant to cater towards this more casual type of audience. But again, it's clearly meant to here and it works great. When it comes to the progression itself in the game, I thought this was mostly well done. It's not something that I see every day, but I think it definitely works. The main gameplay loop is playing games in order to earn coins, and when you earn coins, you can use them in order to buy different pieces of equipment. So, different types of melee weapons that have their pluses and minuses, different types of weapons that you can use that have pros and cons, different bombs, you get the idea. There's some cool stuff in here, like the ability to get rocket boots that can fly you around, but you can't swim as fast, or a grappling hook that you can use in order to swing around. It's some really fun stuff, it makes it worthwhile to progress, and it's a mostly enjoyable loop. But the real killer for progression that can make it a hell of a lot faster is the achievement system in the game. There's a whole bunch of achievements in the game, and it can make you directly go out of your way to get them, and if you do, you get a lot of currency that you can use to fast track your progression. I would imagine because I noticed this early on and was going out of my way to try to accomplish some of these things, that I ended up probably progressing a lot faster than a lot of other people. It's a cool system, and I like it. That said, there was something that really confused me, and that's that the progression appears to be entirely based around the coin system, which is fine, but there is a player and a class XP leveling system, and I don't know why. Maybe there's a reason. If there is, you can let me know in the comments, but I have absolutely no clue why this is here. It doesn't appear to do anything, so I don't know what's the point other than, I guess, flexing your level? And it's even more baffling because there's a game pass that you can get that doubles your XP, but why? Why would you need that? I don't know, it's just really weird. And really, I guess the only negative thing that I can say about the game, which isn't really a negative thing because I think it's more of a player base issue, and I'm not entirely sure if any amount of real changes would fix it, but when games start to become a blowout, people can just stop spawning, which leads them to be even bigger blowouts, and it's just not fun on either side. It's so shitty when you're getting crushed and you're one of like 4 people actually spawning in. And it's equally as shitty when you're just sitting outside of the enemy boat because none of the enemy team wants to play. Maybe there could be something tweaked when it came to the spawning system in order to force people to spawn in so they couldn't just go AFK if they start losing, but I don't know. I'm not even so sure that that's going to fix it, but it was definitely the most frustrating part of the game. And I suppose I could also mention the fact that you can't move the ship at all, and there's no cannons, which isn't the end of the world. I think it's pretty clear that the intent is to have it so that way you are directly fighting the enemy players in order to deal with the boat, and it's not just shooting cannons back and forth. But I did think it was a bummer that you can't move the ship at all. I hope maybe in the future that'll be a thing, because that was super fun in Galleons, and not being able to do that, just, it feels off. Either way, while I'm sure there's some stuff that I could come up with in order to talk about, really what it comes down to is this game is a whole lot of casual fun for a couple hours, and I highly recommend it. Naturally, it'll be linked in the description below, so if you want to give it a shot, go for it. And with all that being said, I'm wrapping up here. So if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.